Okay, so you know we like to go deep on stuff that's got people talking, right? And this essay, The New Aesthetics of Slop, this one really lit a fire under folks. You guys flooded our inbox with this one.
Yeah, it's definitely provocative. I mean, Ted Gioia over at the Honest Broker, he's not pulling any punches, right? This was
Yeah.
back in February, but it's still resonating.
Big time. And it's got us thinking, too, about, where art's headed, what we're all consuming, what we even consider art these days. So we're going to dive deep into this slop, see what Gio is really saying, how he defines it, what he thinks it's doing to us. Buckle up. It's going to get a little weird.
Hey, yeah, a little weird. Maybe a massive understatement.
Yeah.
But hey, that's kind of the point. We got to understand this thing if we're going to talk about it.
Totally. So Gioia kicks things off by kind of taking us back to the early 1900s. He's like, look, remember when art was booming? You had all these wild, crazy movements popping up. Surrealism, futurism, cubism, Dadaism, Art Deco, and, I'm just scratching the surface.
And he's not wrong, right? I mean, that was a wild time for art. Like each one of those movements was a huge deal, pushing boundaries, shaking things up. And they were all happening basically at the same time. It was an explosion of creativity. Like, can you imagine being an artist back then?
Right. It must have been electric. And his point is, like, where's that energy today? He looks around and he sees, what, like a whole lot of nothing?
Yeah, he calls it a creative stagnation even. And he's got a point, right? Like, can you name a major art movement that's defining our times like those ones did back then?
That's the thing. It's like everyone's doing their own thing, but there's no real unifying, force behind it. And this is where slop enters the picture.
Right. This is his big idea, his label for what he sees as the dominant art style of, well, right now. And get this, he blames it on machines.
Machines, like robots with paintbrushes.
Haha, not quite. He's talking about artificial intelligence, these AI algorithms cranking out content on, well, basically every web platform you can think of.
Oh, okay. I see where he's going with this. So, like, that AI art that's been blowing up everywhere, that's slop.
That's a big part of it, according to him. And it's not just visual art either. Music, video, you name it. He says slop is everywhere.
Okay, so how does this even work? Like, how do you make slop? Is there a recipe?
Apparently, it's pretty easy. You just
Yeah.
take one of these AI image generators, you feed it some completely nonsensical prompt, and boom, out comes slop. Like, Gioia gives this example. Vladimir Putin and Taylor Swift riding a motorcycle surrounded by partying teddy bears.
Wait, what? Haha, that is so bizarre. Like, why would anyone even think of that?
That's precisely his point. It's about being whack, as he puts it. Like, remember Ezra Pound, the poet? His famous motto was, make it new. Well, Gioia says we've moved on. Now it's all about make it whack.
You make it whack. I like that. It kind of captures the whole vibe, right? Like, you scroll through social media and it's just a constant stream of, like, the weirdest stuff imaginable.
Exactly. And Gioia even points out that, like, with AI art, it's almost boring if it produces something that's actually good, technically skilled or beautiful. The real prize is creating the most absurd, most outlandish slop imaginable. There's this weird competition for who can make the most messed up stuff.
It's like a race to the bottom of, like, taste insanity. And
Yeah.
people are eating it up.
Literally. There are accounts on social media dedicated to curating the best, or I guess worst, of this stupid slop, as Gioia calls it.
So we've done from, like, impressionism, where artists were obsessing over capturing light and beauty, to this.
And that's a huge part of Gioia's argument, right? He's contrasting this slop with art movements of the past, movements like Impressionism, Naturalism, where artists were dedicated to their craft. They were trying to say something meaningful, something deep.
They had a vision, right? They were trying to, like, reflect the world or explore human emotions or something.
Right? There was a sense of purpose behind it. And Gioia, he's not saying everyone has to like that kind of art. But you got to admit, there was a seriousness to it, a commitment, a sense of trying to achieve something.
And now we have teddy bear raves with Putin and Taylor Swift.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of a head scratcher, right? And Gioia is pretty blunt about who he thinks slop appeals to. He says it's for people who basically have zero artistic sensitivity, but a crude sense of humor and heads stuffed full of pop culture junk. Yeah, he even specifically calls out 12-year-olds.
Ouch. Yeah, that's not exactly a flattering portrait.
And he doesn't stop there. He goes on to say that these tech companies, they're not just making this stuff possible. They're actively bragging about how sloppy their AI is. Like it's a selling point for them.
So they're, like, actively encouraging this whole slop aesthetic.
It seems that way. And with each new AI iteration, they're trying to make it even more whack.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not just an accident. It's a deliberate strategy. It makes you wonder of what they're really after.
Okay, so we get that Gioia is not a fan. But let's get down to brass tacks here. How does he actually define slop?
Well, he starts with the dictionary, which, as you might expect, doesn't paint a pretty picture. Slop can mean tasteless food, garbage, or even get this excreted body waste.
Oh, okay, that's harsh. But I guess he's making a point.
He's definitely not mincing words. And he's basically arguing that this sense of something being, base, gross, and just plain worthless, that's what he sees as the essence of this digital slop aesthetic.
So it's like the art equivalent of like leftover food scraps and, yeah, other unpleasant stuff.
Pretty much. And he really drives the point home with what he calls the slop manifesto. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but also deadly serious. He lays out the key principles of slop.
Oh, I love a good manifesto. Lay it on me.
So he says slop popped up around 2023, right when this generative AI started taking off. And slop art, he says, it's flat, awkward, lifeless, and often just plain ridiculous, especially when it throws together these random cultural references that make no sense.
Like Putin, Taylor Swift, and teddy bears on motorcycles.
Exactly. And get this. He says slop works are celebrated for their stupidity and clumsiness. The more nonsensical, the better. It's like the whole point is to be as ridiculous as possible.
That's wild. But okay, here's the thing that gets me. This stuff isn't being made in some like basement art studio by a broke college student. This is coming from the tech giants.
Bingo. And that's a major part of Gioia's critique. He says hundreds of billions of dollars, billions with a B, have been poured into the technology behind slop, while actual artists, musicians, writers, real people creating stuff, they're often struggling to get by.
So we're talking about a massive imbalance here, like a huge amount of resources going towards something that Gioia considers, well, garbage.
Right. And he even makes this bold claim. No art movement in history has ever soaked up this much money. And that's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
It's like, what are our priorities here?
Yeah.
Are we really putting all our eggs in the slop basket? And like, why?
Well, Gioia thinks part of the appeal of slop comes from this very disparity. It's the gleeful mockery, he says, that's amplified by the fact that so much money is being wasted on it. Like we're laughing at the absurdity, but also at the sheer waste involved.
So the more money that gets thrown at it, the funnier it becomes in a kind of twisted way.
Yeah, there's this inherent cynicism built into the whole thing. Like, we know it's stupid, we know it's wasteful, but we can't look away.
And that's Gioia's final verdict. Slop is stupid, wasteful, tasteless, and cynical.
Boom, mic drop.
Okay, but what about the AI itself? Like, can you blame the algorithm for making slop?
That's where things get really interesting. Gioia's argument is that slop is kind of inevitable with AI because at its core, artificial intelligence lacks the things that make human art meaningful. It has no self, no personhood, no actual subjective experience.
So it's like a really smart parrot mimicking what it's seen, but without any real understanding of what it means.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Like it can imitate human emotion, it can learn patterns, but it doesn't actually feel anything.
So all that, like, supposed emotion in AI art, it's just smoke and mirrors, basically.
According to Gioia, yeah. He says even the way AI knows the world is secondhand through data. It's never had that direct gut-level experience of things that shapes how we humans create art. So it's all surface, no depth.
That's kind of depressing, actually. Like, if AI is just going to keep churning out soulless slop, where does that leave us?
Well, Gioia is pretty pessimistic on that front. He thinks slop is here to stay because, well, money talks. These billionaires are pouring cash into AI, and they're not going to stop anytime soon.
So buckle up for the slop apocalypse, I guess. But hold on, it gets even weirder. Gioia claims that now even human artists are starting to imitate slop.
Yeah, and he's not just talking about people using AI art tools. He's saying that even in like real-life photography, there's this trend towards creating images that look like they were spit out by an AI. That same kind of awkward, almost glitchy feel.
Like we're trying to make reality itself look more like slop.
Exactly. And Gioia sees this as like the ultimate victory of slop. He's basically saying, look, we've reached peak stupidity, and now even humans are striving for it. It's a pretty bleak assessment of where we're at.
So those photos you see online that just seem like off or too perfect to be real, maybe they are.
Maybe. And Gioia even brings up some specific examples from, real-world events. Like, remember that picture of the plane flipped upside down?
Yeah.
Or that whole thing at the Oscars with the slap?
Or how about a certain presidential candidate is riding around in a garbage truck?
Right. Gioia's point is that we're starting to view even these real-life events through this slop lens, focusing on the absurdity, the weirdness, the out-of-placeness of it all.
So it's not just art that's affected. It's like our whole way of seeing the world is becoming slopified. And that's kind of scary.
It's definitely food for thought. And Gioia is not letting us off the hook either. He reminds us that these aesthetic movements, they don't just stay in the art world, they seep into everything.
He's talking about slop jobs, inside slop buildings, wearing slop clothes, rocking slop hairstyles. It's like a full-blown slop takeover.
That's his vision of the future. And it's not pretty, but then he throws down this challenge. Is this what we deserve?
And he answers with a resounding no. He's basically saying, we are better than this, people. We deserve better than slop.
And he urges us to fight back, to push back against the slopmeisters of Silicon Valley.
It's a call to arms for the art lovers, the beauty seekers, the people who still value meaning and craft and all that good stuff.
And he even suggests a weapon: good taste. He says, they may have the money, but we have the good taste. It's a rallying cry for aesthetic discernment, for recognizing what's truly valuable and rejecting the cheap thrills of slop.
I love that. But how do we fight back against billionaires and their AI armies? It seems kind of hopeless.
Well, Gioia has an idea. Bring back the word vulgar. He says it's the perfect label for what these tech giants are peddling. It's strong, it's blunt, and it captures the essence of what he's criticizing.
Vulgar. I haven't heard that word in a while. But it fits, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about being tasteless. It's about being offensive, about lacking any sense of decency or refinement.
Right. And Gioia ends on a note of, well, conscious optimism. He says that even a few people resisting this vulgarity, speaking out against it, that could be the spark for a new kind of art movement.
So it's not about like storming the Googleplex with pitchforks. It's about reclaiming our taste, our standards, our values, and saying, no, we won't settle for slop.
That's the message. And it's resonated with people, clearly. I look at all the comments we got. Like Travis Hartnett, he had a pretty interesting take. He said, people get the art they deserve,
Yeah.
based on what they're consuming online.
So if you're just mindlessly scrolling and liking whatever pops up, you're going to get a lot of slop in your feed. It's like you're training the algorithm to feed you more of the same.
Exactly. And he also makes this point about continuing to create his own art, even if it's not getting the same attention as the slop. It's like, I'm going to keep doing my thing, even if the world's gone crazy for AI-generated weirdness.
I respect that. And then there was Scott Douglas, who wondered if this whole slop thing actually goes back further than AI. He compared it to those, like, intentionally wacky commercials, the ones that are so bizarre they're almost unwatchable.
Yeah, those commercials. You know the ones like with the talking animals selling car insurance or something? Douglas was saying that those have that same kind of self-aware, we know this is ridiculous vibe as slop.
So maybe AI just gave us a new way to create slop, but the desire for it, the taste for it, maybe that was already there.
It's an interesting thought. Maybe we've been slowly slopifying our culture for a while now, and AI just kicked it into overdrive.
So to sum it all up, Gioia is saying we're living in the age of slop, an aesthetic he defines by its stupidity, wastefulness, tastelessness, and cynicism. It's fueled by AI, bankrolled by billionaires, and it's slowly taking over everything.
Yeah, he doesn't paint a pretty picture, but he also offers a glimmer of hope. He believes we can fight back, reclaim our taste, and maybe even spark a new art movement that values something more than just being whack.
So to you, our dear listener, we pose the question, is slop just a passing fad, a weird blip in the history of art? Or is it something deeper, something that's changing how we create, how we see the world, how we think? It's a question worth pondering, even if it makes your head spin a little. Thanks for diving deep with us. Until next time, stay curious, stay thoughtful, and for goodness sake, stay away from the slop.
Yeah, good advice.